Welcome to Politics Nation. Tonight's lead, on the road again. President Trump will venture outside the warm bubble of the White House and his own resort properties this week when he heads to Pennsylvania this Tuesday to tout his economic agenda. Polling shows nearly two-thirds of Americans think the president hasn't made good on his promises to bring down prices and supercharge the economy. The president's fixation on fancy parties and big ballrooms have Americans wondering if Trump is out of touch, while his White House increasingly aggressive tactics toward perceived enemies, foreign and domestic, also have them worried the administration is spinning out of control. Joining me now is Maryland Congressman Kweisi Mfume. Thanks for being with us tonight, Congressman. Congressman, let me start with this. The president will be heading to northeastern Pennsylvania on Tuesday. He hasn't been in the state since July, and he hasn't really addressed voters there since the campaign. He's supposed to be laying the groundwork for an economic message that will carry his party through the midterms, but polling suggests many Americans have lost confidence. What are you expecting Tuesday?
Well, I expect the same old dog and pony show that any other traveling salesman would try to put on to try to convince people that what they see is really not the truth. Most people know that they have been hurting under this president in terms of economics and affordability. When you look at the cost of groceries, the cost of electricity to heat homes, and when you look at interest rates continuing to go up, most people know where their hurt is. Their hurt is in their pocket, and it's at their dinner table. So he'll run around Pennsylvania, waving the flag and claiming to be a savior and really trying to tell people that things are not as bad as they are. But it's just falling short. It hasn't worked here recently for the president. It's really not working as we speak.
The president seems to realize he needs a new message on the economy, but can't seem to decide whether affordability is his new buzzword or a Democratic hoax. In the past few weeks, his administration has tried to highlight new policies like encouraging the production of tiny cars or baby bonds. They floated ideas to cut prescription drug prices, but have no concrete plan to address affordable care. The Affordable Care Act premiums set to skyrocket when subsidies expire at the year's end, the end of this month. Is this a coherent economic platform?
Well, it's not coherent to you and me and most balanced thinking Americans. It's not coherent at all. Many people in this country are already looking at a 13% increase in insurance rates. And when you put in the increases as a result of the ending of the subsidies through ACA, people are looking at 30, 40, 50% increases in their health care. And they've got to make decisions. Do I go without health care and hope that my children, my spouse, and I don't get ill, or do I find a way to take money from someplace else and to pay these things down? So the president clearly is not in touch with where most people are economically, and he talks the way he does because he doesn't know what that pinch is like. He doesn't know what it's like to have to pay extra costs for health care or extra costs for groceries or the other things that we're all faced with. It's a dog and pony show, and he's a snake oil salesman in that regard.
Do you think that there's real concern on behalf of the president or White House about the health costs at the end of the month going sky high, and how are you feeling about it?
Well, I think they're starting to get concerned when you look at the recent elections that took place in New York and Pennsylvania and Virginia. Overwhelmingly, people are rejecting his message and the message of the Republican Party. That includes many Republicans as well as independents. It's just not playing well because he said he was going to do one thing on day one and hasn't done those sort of things. I think now the president realizes that this is an issue, that it is about pocketbooks and how much money is in a household and how you pay for things. And so he wants to try to change things, but he doesn't want to admit that he was wrong. In fact, he said said just last week, affordability is a Democratic hoax. Well, we know it's not a hoax. We know that people are continuing to hurt. And we know that many people trusted him, particularly Republicans, who gave him the benefit of the doubt that he would do what he said he would do. And yet they just are starting to realize that Donald Trump is incapable of doing that. He's going to do what he feels is in his best interest, and that's the way it's been.
Now, we will also be monitoring this week for any escalation in the tensions with Venezuela. Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth defending strikes against alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and Pacific. Take a listen to the Secretary speaking yesterday afternoon at the Reagan National Defense Forum.
The days in which these narco-terrorists, designated terror organizations, operate freely in our hemisphere are over. These narco-terrorists are the Al-Qaeda of our hemisphere, and we are hunting them with the same sophistication and precision that we hunted Al-Qaeda. We are tracking them, we are killing them, and we will keep killing them so long as they are poisoning our people with narcotics so lethal that they're tantamount to chemical weapons.
Congressional Democrats who heard from Admiral Frank Bradley last week about attacks on survivors of boat strikes left the briefing shocked by the account they heard and video of the operation. This is a situation that is getting more dangerous by the day. Don't the American people deserve more accountability from an administration that seems to be positioning for war?
Well, not only do Americans require and want and expect accountability, so are our allies all over the globe who are watching this. If he's comparing this to Al-Qaeda, at least with Al-Qaeda, they brought forth demonstrated evidence of what they were doing and why it was illegal and to justify any actions. There's not been any accounting or release of information on any of these people who are all now deceased that they are, in fact, guilty of something. That could be true, but if you've got the information, you've got to share it. So if you continue to strike these boats as we've been doing, killing people as we've been doing as a country, refusing to take prisoners as we have been doing, people just don't feel right. It's just not the same kind of accountability. And the United States has always held itself to a higher standard. Capture people when you can capture them, like the ones last week that they decided to kill anyway. Bring them into this country. We've done that over and over again. Charge them, put them on trial, and prove that what they're doing is, in fact, what you're alleging. They will not do that, and for some reason, Secretary Hegseth, as well as the president, continue this cover-up, this big smokescreen that says, trust me, believe in me, I'm telling you the truth, even though I don't have any evidence.
At the same time, he pardons the Honduran former president who was convicted in American courts for drug trafficking. But I'm out of time, but I must ask you this. I want to get your take on the Supreme Court announcing Friday it would rule on whether the administration has the power to end birthright citizenship. Now, some in our audience may not realize the birthright citizenship is not just an immigration issue, it's a civil right guaranteed by the 14th of the amendment of the Constitution, which overturned the Dred Scott decision in 1857 denying citizenship to black people. Can you speak to what it could mean for our country if the Supreme Court should decide to mess with this, and how concerned are you about this case?
Well, like you, Reverend, I'm very, very concerned because right now it may seem like it's not important, but anytime you do away with birthright citizenship, you're saying that any child born in this country is not a citizen. We're not talking about immigrants. We could be talking about black babies being born who are not afforded citizenship. There's a devious plot behind this that goes along with this notion of a replacement theory, where you have white races who are saying over and over again, we can't afford to be replaced by Jews or by immigrants or anybody else. And so we want to put in place certain guardrails. This goes hand in glove with that. You cannot deny citizenship to someone who was born in this country, and when that's been the law in the Constitution for over 160 years, unless you're trying to do something that's dark dangerous and diabolical.
All right. Thank you, Maryland Congressman Kweisi Mfume. Let's turn now to Minnesota, where the Trump administration has stepped up immigration enforcement. This as the president has amped up his criticism of the state's Somali community after the National Guard shooting in Washington, D.C., even though no evidence whatsoever links the attack to Somali immigrants. Joining me now is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, a Democrat. Mayor, thank you for being with us. I want to play you some sound from Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, on the Sunday shows this morning, talking about why Somalis are being targeted in your city. Take a listen.
Mr. Homan, the president said very clearly this week that he doesn't want Somali immigrants in America. He called them garbage. Is that the real reason this operation is happening in the Somali community?
No, I think President Trump's referring to public safety threats as national security threat from Somalia and every other country.
Well, he didn't say that. He said
he's been clear from day one.
He talked about the whole community.
What's the mood in the city? What are people saying, Mr. Mayor?
The audio that you just referenced, I think, makes the primary point. When somebody does something wrong in this country, they are held accountable as individuals. You don't hold the entire community accountable. And so if the Trump administration is looking to protect and serve, if they're looking out for people within our city, trying to prevent narcotics from getting in, trying to prevent gun violence, well, hey, we're on board. But that's not what they're doing. What they are clearly doing is targeting an entire community, saying clearly that Somalis are garbage. And here's the thing, in Minneapolis, Somalis have been of great benefit to our city. They've been here for decades. They have started businesses. Their families are here. They're part of the fabric and the culture that makes Minneapolis Minneapolis. And we're certainly proud to have them. And here's one of the biggest things. They're American citizens. And I don't know if somebody in the Trump administration gave some sort of order to start deporting Somalis based on their lack of documentation status, but they have documentation. They are legal. They are American citizens. And so the thing that these federal agents have been asked to carry out just isn't possible. It doesn't make sense, but that dynamic has certainly been commonplace for the Trump administration.
Now, today, the Minneapolis police chief confirmed that there was ICE activity in Augsburg University, but couldn't confirm if there had been any arrest. You've taken steps to get the city ready, such as signing an executive order, banning federal forces from staging in city-owned parking areas, and designating a template for local businesses and property owners to ban ICE from taking action on their property. Based on what you are seeing in other states, how do you expect this to play out? Is there more that can be done?
The approach that the Trump administration is taking presently in Minneapolis seems to be scattered and chaotic at best. Certainly, it is terrorizing to the people and the communities that they are going after. And the message that we are sending to our Somali community, to our Latino community, to any community that is being targeted, is that we stand with you. Minneapolis is not backing down. Our police officers will not coordinate with any federal agency that is doing immigration law enforcement work. We stand with the community members that make Minneapolis the extraordinary place that it is, and we aren't backing down. We're rock solid in support of them.
Now, I want to get back to why this is happening. Trump has been hurling insults at the Somali community long before the D.C. attack, which, of course, had nothing to do with them. You have been mocked online by right-wing accounts just for eating at a Somali restaurant and trying to connect culturally with your own constituents. What do you think this is actually all about? Is this just plain simple racism against a black immigrant group?
Well, Reverend, let's put it this way. if I was eating spaghetti at an Italian restaurant, would they be freaking out and losing it? If I was eating at a French restaurant or a Norwegian restaurant to connect with our Norwegian constituents, would they be freaking out? If I was speaking some language like like French, for instance, to connect with certain communities that are within our city or our state, would these right-wing, tinfoil hat-wearing people be losing it? The answer is, of course not. Of course it's about racism. I'm proud to eat some really good food, by the way, that the Somali community has got in our city. I'm proud to at least try to speak the language. I think you could give me a C+ at best in my attempts. This is ways that you connect with people, you spread a message. They're obviously better able to understand you. And these are people, again, that have been in Minneapolis for longer than I have been here. I'm from the East Coast originally. And when I moved out here to Minneapolis, one of the first communities that embraced me, not as a politician, but as a human being, as a person, was a Somali community. And so, yeah, we're standing by them. They add so significantly to the cultural fabric of Minneapolis, to our economy. I mean, just for me individually, they're Somali person's our banker, the Somali person's my bodyguard. We've got a Somali person babysitting our kids. We need them. We're proud to have them. And this narrative that the Trump administration is trying to push is wrong-headed. It's mean-spirited. And it's just not true.
Now, I wanted to get your take on the fraud case that has created political shockwaves in your state. Federal prosecutors have charged dozens of people in connection with an alleged scheme to steal money from a food charity for children. According to the New York Times, some of them are linked to the Democratic Party and others are members of the Somali community. The administration is seizing on the controversy to question the credibility of prominent lawmakers in the state, including Governor Tim Walz. What's your reaction to what's been coming out?
The fraud that occurred is real. At this point, it's not just alleged. People have indeed been convicted. They were stealing money from kids that was supposed to go to food that would feed them. People were stealing money that should have gone towards housing stabilization. And when that happens, you prosecute, you charge, you hold the person accountable, and yeah, they go to jail as individuals. They go to jail as individuals because you should rise based on your own merit. You should fall based on your own flaws. The entire community of Somalis or any other community should not be held accountable. Reverend, I'm Jewish, but when Bernie Madoff got in big trouble for financial crimes, a Jew himself, nobody held me accountable for that. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, Polish, but nobody held all the Polish people in the United States accountable for what he did. And so in America, again, you have the freedom of choice. You make decisions. When those decisions are against the law, you get held accountable as an individual. The whole community, however, does not.
Mayor Frey, 5 years ago, you and I found ourselves involved in the George Floyd case, and you were very fair and receptive to being fair with those that were charged and being fair with those of us that were protesting and those of us with the family. 5 years later, how do you assess what is going on with policing and race relations in your city?
5 years later, we are making great progress, and we aren't there yet. Our commitment was this. Our commitment following the murder of George Floyd, COVID-19, this 100 years in the making reckoning around racial justice, was not to get back to the old normal. It was to blow by the old normal, to see true transformation and change in our city, to make sure that the precision of our solutions match the precision of the harm that was initially inflicted. And that harm was precise, not just to Mr. Floyd, but to so many people throughout our city and indeed throughout our country. And so we are making real change. Progress is afoot. And yeah, we aren't there yet. The change is hard. And there are people in our police department, our chief of police, more broadly throughout our administration, that are really committed to doing the work. And so I'm optimistic. The work's afoot, and we just got to keep our nose to the grindstone.
All right. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, thank you for being with us this evening. Coming up, Pennsylvania delivered for Trump in 2024 election, but Trump hasn't necessarily delivered for Pennsylvania as president. I've got some thoughts as the White House prepares for a return to the Keystone State when Politics Nation comes back on MS Now.